We're live.
We're live. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We did not discuss anything, so we're back in. Want to continue your questions?
Thank you, Chairman, but Nicole was going to respond to my question about asking for the original plat.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may. Just to address Charles's first two concerns, the checklist on page 22 was actually not the list that is used, and this is actually quite misleading. I do have it marked that we need to amend this checklist on page 22 because the checklist that is to be used is actually in supplements 4 on page 10 of supplements. And the reason we use this checklist is because it's actually the preliminary plat application, and it's titled Subdivision Preliminary Plat Application Form and Element Checklist. And I realize as we got into using these subdivision regulations that it does not match the checklist on page 22, so that definitely can be misleading. So when Ms. Counts was putting this application together, she was utilizing the preliminary plat elements checklist that was a part of the application. So then the numbers actually do match because they would be off utilizing the checklist on page 22. With that being said, I do recognize that section of the regulations needs to be amended. The Commission just adopted these regulations in September of 2024. There are a couple of other slight errors, such as page numbering, that need to be corrected. That this is just something that this planning board is going to have to tackle within the next few months, looking at going through and amending these regulations again. I just was reluctant to go through that process. To amend the regulations is quite a lengthy process. So anyway, so just to address that initial concern of Mr. Freshman that the numbers don't match. No, they do not match the checklist on page 22, but if you go to page 11 of supplements 4, they do match that. And then your second question, Mr. Freshman, was the original plat that identified this as an agricultural covenant. That can be found under tab 5. So this parcel, just to give you all just a bit of history, was created as part of the Savannah State subdivision. So if you go under tab 5 of your preliminary plat application for the Counts Hay and Cattle minor subdivision, tab 5 shows this it's titled Amended Tract 1 Agricultural Tract. So the developer of the Savannah State subdivision, when he did the Savannah States development, all of this property that's depicted on tab 5, the dark outlined area, was part of the Savannah States, but for whatever reason, he decided to make this amended Tract 1A an agricultural tract and only develop the southerly, I don't know how many lots, I apologize, 20 lots. And then this lot became the agricultural lot, which might be difficult to read what the agricultural exemption is. It's definitely illegible to me on this map, but if you look at the recorded map, it does tell you what the agricultural covenant means.
Anybody want to borrow money? May I?
Yes, you may.
Nicole, I thought this was the original COS, Certificate of Survey.
So maybe I misunderstood your question. I thought that's what you were asking for.
No, the certificate of survey is a different document than the plat. The plat is kind of what we have under
Tab 4.
tab 4. But my, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the original plat. Okay, I see a final plat approval. Okay. So I'm just kind of checking in here, so let's keep going, if that's okay.
That is fine.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to page 22, because that's what I scribbled on. So, is under page 22, number 4, a copy of the most current certificate of survey or subdivision plat pertaining to the parcel. So, okay, that one's good. We'll call that the plat, not the certificate of survey. And then a map showing the nearest utilities, which is number 5. And that's, is it on here? It's number 6 on here. And I don't see that. Number 7 is a topographic map. Am I doing okay? Number 7 is a topographic map, and I'm not sure where it is on the plat. I tried to overlay them, and I'm not sure where the topo is lining up to on the plat. I would prefer, as an engineer, having topography that extends beyond the boundaries of the subdivision. Our sanitarian, Megan, will need that when she does the DEQ 8 stormwater review. So if we could get more topo, would be appreciated. I'm not quite sure. We also need to show where the houses are going to be, too. Number 11, lien holders, acknowledgement of subdivision. I think I saw that somewhere. Maybe it's, yeah, it's under number 10, which is kind of in the wrong spot. And then regarding the lien holders, incumbents discussion, it's saying that taxes were paid for 2023, but we're already in 2025. So we need to update that for 2024. If, it's up to Nicole, but she's gonna kill me. Continuing on this lien holders report, under number 5, it says the effect of the certificate of survey recorded in book 1 of the plat, page 917, the survey moves the boundary lines, however, no deeds have been recorded. What boundary lines are we moving? Is that shown in the most current plat, the amended plat, or is it shown on the old plat? I'm not sure what they're meaning by that.
Bernadette, can you speak on that or not?
Hello, Bernadette Swenson, Swenson. I'm not quite following the question. Are you talking on the plating certificate?
Yeah, on Schedule B, Mason?
Yes.
Schedule B, of the plating certificate, it's number 5, it says the effect of the certificate of survey recorded in book 1 of plats 917, the survey boundary lines. The survey moves boundary lines, however, no deed have been recorded.
I would have the title company does the plating certificate. That could be a historical survey from before all of this. The title company goes backwards. Let me look through if it's in the history. Without a copy of that, I don't really know what they're evading to, but there's been no boundary relocations on the Counts property since it was created. There's been no boundary relocation done on it. Let's see. 917. It could have been like adjoining property in the tract history.
It's something that you can look up later. Ed's got to go, and kind of running out of time.
Yeah. And to address the topo map, because the area is so large, the county allows a topo of just a 1 acre building site done where they're going to do the construction, and the sanitarian has accepted that also instead of spending, topoing the whole 100 and some acres. We've done just 1 acre, the building site where the building is going to be. And I did see the utility map browsing through here, and I'll find that, let you know where that is. It might have. Anyways, I'll find that again and let you know where that was. It might have just got out of order somehow during the printing.
Okay, folks, I need to leave, so if you want to continue, Dallas, can you take over as chair?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Vice Chair, may I respond
Absolutely.
to the question of utilities? I do have the utilities in my book under tab 6. There are 2 pages. One is a full utility map showing the utilities on the property, and then the next page shows the utilities, the nearest utilities outside the boundaries of the property, and they're identified in a blue color. Do you have 2 pages under tab 5?
I do. Oh, 5.
Go to tab 5.
5,
6, I'm sorry.
6?
6 is correct.
That's why I'm thinking they might have got out of order because it's not in this book.
Okay.
I don't
This is, you don't
recognize
have
that.
this map. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I seen it when I was just browsing through her.
Goodbye, Ed.
Good.
So this is what I have under tab 6. Utility map showing utilities on the property, and then the second page under tab 6 showing utilities outside the boundaries of the property. Which, this was an item, I don't recall, of element completeness or sufficiency, so I don't know if it, because my book comes in separate from your book, so I don't know if maybe they didn't make it into, yeah, into the board books. Which would make sense why you're not seeing it.
So how do we, as a point of going forward, how do we handle that when we don't see it? Does that necessitate another, I mean,
The clock,
I don't,
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
yeah, go ahead, please answer.
Sorry, so the clock would pause because the board was not provided the same information in my binder, which is why I deemed it sufficient. So the clock would pause and restart back up, not at day 1, but restart back up once the items, once we were able to get them to the planning board. So let's simplify this. Moving forward, if we paused today, and I would like Charles to finish going through his list just in case there are more items that are needed, because I don't want to continually pause the clock, right? We would pause the clock. Tessa would provide the missing items that need to be in the board binders. We would start back up on, I don't know what today in the time clock today is, but we'd start back up once the planning board was able to look at that information and have their next meeting. Just because this is only a 35 working day clock, so we want to be sure that we're being held to that time clock. A lot of times if we rush it too fast and this board isn't able to make an educated decision, the outcome is not necessarily great for the developer. So, to pause is actually the best way, and to not stop the clock and restart at day 1. Did that answer your question?
Yes, so that would mean that it would push it past the April 22nd deadline. It would add however many days we pause, would add to the opportunity to provide, to be completely done. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct, yeah. So the deadline, the county would not be held to that April 22nd deadline, but that does not mean that we would restart at day 1 of 35 working days when the information was received. We would just be in this pause period because it's not new information. It's simply maybe some information was missed from obtaining sufficiency in my binder, because I know some of the information was walked in separate outside of the binder, in order for them to receive sufficiency. And so I'm thinking what happened is maybe that information wasn't translated to the board books. Does that make sense what I'm saying there? I felt like that I was confusing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and there is a copy of the utility map as item 21.
Oh, it is in 21. Okay.
Yes. And it shows the utilities, where the topo map was done. So, yeah, I can't speak to that, but there is a copy on item 21. In the boards. I'll get that one.
Can I see, does it include, this map here. Okay. Okay. Because the vigilante map was the one that was required in order to receive sufficiency. Because item number 6 specifically states a vicinity sketch as described in the supplements showing the location of the nearest utilities. So it's not stating that utilities on the property, nearest utilities. And so this map actually does, that you're not able to see because it's in my binder here, does actually show the nearest utilities approximately in a half-mile, 1 mile range. Sorry, that's all I had to add.
Okay. Please continue.
May I proceed? I'm trying to go fast here. So we talked about the lien holders acknowledgement and an update to that. And the question about the boundary line adjustment. What are we referring to there? Let me make sure I can. I'm kind of flipping here. So, I'm gonna kind of jump around here, and then, so under number 32 on page 23, and number 31 under supplement 4, it's asking for a letter requesting removal of the agricultural covenants. I might have didn't see that, but we have supplement number 13 of the rules that is an example of how to remove that, which is required. May I proceed?
What's your question? What's the question on that?
There is
Please.
no letter requesting removal of the agricultural covenants as required. And there's an example supplement number 13 that gives that.
Tessa counts again. For supplement, or section 31, I initially had wrote a letter requesting lifting of the agricultural covenant. Was instructed by Nicole to in turn put in supplement 13 that is now in section 31. So it was replaced during sufficiency review.
It's under tab 13?
Tab 31, I believe it's actually called supplement 13. I might not be correct in that statement.
Yeah, we're talking to...
Yeah.
But it's not signed.
May I respond?
Yes, please answer.
I'm sorry. Just for clarification, in the binder, it's not titled supplement 13, but it is the language. And just to be clear, the supplement 13 is a sample. So while it is part of the regulation, it is beneficial that they use that application, and it will not be signed until it is approved by the commissioners. So no, it would not be signed until the commissioners approve it, and then it's recorded with the final plat with the signature of the commissioners and the owners.
Okay.
Does that cover what you were asking
Yeah,
about?
I was just looking for
Okay.
this letter.
Yeah,
And it appears we have it.
okay.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Thank you. I'm gonna skip down to, on page 23, number 37, and under section 4, which I can never find. Um, $36. Um, This is gonna be a little bit out there, but there is a documented earthquake fault that goes through that area. It's called the Lombard Thrust. It's been active. We had an earthquake there 20 years ago. But it's documented on Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology. It's been excavated to measure the rate of movement. It's, if I'm correct, when I used to do earthquake engineering, it's one of the 13 most active faults in Montana. It would show up as a scarf, and I'm not quite sure where it is, but if you pull out your phone, where it is on your property, but there would be a scarf, not, it would just be kind of like a slump. I think that that's important. Did I bring that up? That we did have some movement on there 20 years ago. It might seem like a long time away, but for earthquakes, it's not. I just want to bring that to the attention of the board and the subdivider that you're building real close to an earthquake fault. And if you get out your phone and Google the Lombard Thrust, you'll see that.
Mr. Vice Chair, can I ask Mr. Freshman a question?
Yes.
Is that, remind me what you're referring to, the fault that you're referring to, is that going to land also on the current 20 lots that are already subdivided on the other side?
It might.
And are built? It might? Okay.
It might.
Okay. So that has already kind of been addressed with some of those properties that have already been built up there, or potentially not?
Potentially not.
Okay.
So you can look at it.
This is, it's in the report, the conditions, that they're made aware that it is an active, an active fault, or an active seismic activity, seismic zone 3, is that correct? Yeah, so that is noted. It's
Right.
noted in the application.
Right.
Is that what your concern is?
No, it's just my concern that I identify that this is a potential hazard to building. And I know that the county, in the staffing report, identified that the county can't be held liable for this potential hazard. Under page 12 of 14 of the staffing report, it says earthquake faults and seismic zones. but I'm kind of just identifying that.
Oh, okay.
And there was,
Okay, that's been noted. I'm not sure what else, is there more? What else would you like to bring? What other questions?
regarding the application.
Yeah, please.
Well, I'm almost done, and thank you guys for helping me through this. Okay, I'm going to ask you to go to the rules on page 40. It's under subsection 3, review and approval procedures for minor subdivision. And I want you to go under 3A7, number 7.
Hi, how are ya? Good. Allison gave me 3 votes last week, so I feel very clear about it. Oh, that's it. Okay, thank you. Everyone, you too.
Then proceed.
Yeah, what's the concern?
I haven't seen in the application where they have demonstrated that there's adequate water source and at least one area for septic system and a replacement drain for each lot. Adequate water, we could use the GWIC report, possibly, because they do pump tests to identify the well. Also, we could possibly use the Sylvain subdivision, water well information regarding the formation, whether, if the depth is similar. We could use, in meaning that we could use similar wells.
Mr. Can I answer that one, Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes, please.
Under recommended conditions, number 2 does say that they have to get that submitted to the Broadwater County Environmental Health Office for review and approval for sewage treatment and water supply in the staff report on page 10.
Right. That's my understanding when they're planning on building numbers. That is what our county sanitarian, Megan, would evaluate to locate the well and locate the drain field. She would use information such as the PERC test to identify the location and the size of the drain field. And to locate the well, she would obviously move it in a location away from the drain field and away from any stormwater to protect it and cattle.
So
But my question has to do with this rules under minor subdivision approval procedures. Is this, my question is gonna be, is this necessary prerequisite to approval? According to it 3A7, number A7, it is. so it's a question.
So under tab 15, there is that water right report. And it does give a gallons per minute.
This is just a certificate of water rights. Meaning they have issued by DNRC. So yeah, it says the flow is 11 gallons a minute. That's not a lot of water. Well, I think that
So the concern is to comply with 3A7A7, right?
yeah,
Is that your concern?
yeah. So that's actually my question. It's not a. It's more. Have they met that rule?
I see. Okay. Is there a codified minimum for a septic system?
Tab 30 is where the septic system is discussed.
Thank you.
I just have an email message.
Correct, that's the response.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, nothing through DEQ, it just comes from the county. So the county would be before, like you say, the county sanitarian would
Yeah,
go
that's-
there and they would dig a test pit.
Right, that's number 30. That's an email from Megan, which is our sanitarian, and she's just saying, in this letter, that the property isn't subject to sanitation subdivision act due to the size, because it's over 20. She's referring to the state regulation 764103. But we're working under 763103. And I just have a simple question. If, and I'm new to the county review, if if this certificate of water rights, and it doesn't identify the well GWIC number, if you think that number 7 is met, I'm good with it. I'm not gonna fall on my sword, regarding it, but regarding adequate location of the septic system typically involves test pitting and some sort of soil perk tests typically is what is done.
Yeah.
I mean, are we building on top of a rock? Is the water gonna end
Right.
up down at the neighbor's house? Is what,
Right, yeah. I mean, I did this when I put in my parents' house. I dug a hole, and she came out and, scraped the sides and told me how, yeah. And so, this is going to happen. This will happen from the county sanitarian. What's your concern?
well, it's that at the very top it says prerequisite to approval. And so, reading that, are they saying preliminary plat approval? Or are they, yeah, it is. The planning board may not recommend, the governing body may not approve, conditionally approve a subdivision and preliminary plat unless the proposed subdivision pursuant to 763608 3BA MCA, and it's number 7.
What was that again? 763103.
70, well, if you go to page 40 of the rules,
Right.
Mr. Chair, may I respond
Yes,
to
please.
this? Okay. So while I understand what Charles is saying, it's very clear that these are prerequisites to approval. The governing body may not approve or conditionally approve unless these sections are satisfied. So if we look specifically at 7, a parcel greater than 20 acres. Great, that's what we're doing. The subdivider shall demonstrate that there is adequate water source. That's one question. There's already an existing well. Is that adequate? I think that's a subjective question. Tessa had indicated that, I'm sorry, I don't recall if it was 13 or 14 gallons per minute, but that they felt that was adequate for the 2 homes and cattle. So there's no real definition of adequate, right? So they do have water. They do have the water right. They do have the identifying gallons per minute. So I can confidently say I feel like that section, if we split question number 7 into 2 parts, adequate water. Is it adequate? She feels it's adequate, and they can demonstrate that they actually do have water and they have a water right. So I think, again, being adequate is a subjective question, but I feel like that satisfies that question. The second question of number 7. at least one area for a septic system and replacement drain field. So Tessa had sent an email to Megan Bullock, our Broadwater County sanitarian, and explaining what it is she intends to do. Megan, the sanitarian, had stated that at this time, nothing is going to occur until said time that the application gets completeness, which does follow standard practice for the county. So Tessa did make contact with the sanitarian, said, hey, I'm wanting to put in a subdivision. What do you need from me? Megan, and I'm paraphrasing everyone's conversation. You all have the information in front of you. You can read it. Megan's response was, great, I don't need anything from you at this time. Obviously, when the time comes that Mr. and Mrs. Counts want to put in their septic system, they'll have to work with Megan. They'll have to dig the test pit because the parcel is greater than 20 acres. That is a requirement of that septic permit. And I'm getting out of my lane here a bit, Daleen, so if I misspeak, please speak to that, because Daleen is in the Environmental Health Office. But when they apply for that septic permit, before they can get approval on installing their septic system, Megan, the sanitarian, will go out and do a test pit inspection. But at this time, there's no, I don't want to say no reason, but really no reason for Megan to go and do a test pit inspection, because they don't have approval. This plan may never come to fruition. Megan has no reason to go out and inspect the soils, because it may be 3 months until they put in their septic system. It may be 3 years. You know, at this point today, we don't actually know. But the fact that Tessa made contact with Megan, let her know what she was doing. Megan said nothing more required from that office. I don't think that we can force Tessa to have to apply for a septic permit in order to do that test pit. But I realize that's also contradictory, excuse me, slightly contradictory to this item number 7, slightly, because it says at least one septic system and replacement drain field for each lot. But clearly, if Megan felt like there was not going to be area for a septic system or replacement area, she would have addressed that in her response letter to Tessa. And I feel comfortable saying that. I don't feel like I'm forcing any words into Megan's mouth that would not be true. So all of that to say, at the time this gets final plat approval, everything is recorded, Mr. and Mrs. Counts come in and apply for a septic permit so they can begin the installation of their system and building their house. They'll be working very, very closely with Megan with the inspection of the test pit and the installation of the septic system and identifying the appropriate location. So if there is bedrock, they'll have to move it. I mean, you know, they have their preferred area of building, but if for some reason, you know, there is bedrock in the area, we know they're going to have to move that location.
Thank you. Does that answer some of your question there?
Yes, you know, it does. I understand the process. I was just looking at the words prerequisite to approval, and that's why I brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
And we will give, before Megan does her job, we're going to give preliminary plat approval, otherwise she can't do her job. And so
when we were going through these regulations and then the supplements, we ran into, I can't remember the specifics, but we ran into a couple of times when you have to put the verbiage down before, just to be sure that it's in the document.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think that this is probably one of those times when it's like, well, you got to make sure that people know that there is going to be sanitary requirements to, you know, putting in a house. And so it had to be known. I think that was one of those times, because there was a couple other times when we were just scratching our heads like, what are we doing? This is weird. Seemingly the cart was before the horse, but it was kind of put there to make sure that we were aware that there was a horse.
I understand. Okay. I will cross that off my list of things. I think
Is there anything further?
Well, I just thought I'd update you on what the question was about the quantity of flow. 10 gallons per minute over a 1 hour period, 6 gallons per minute over a 2 hour period, 4 gallons per minute over a 4-hour period are the minimum flows. So, we're, right there. You know, we're okay, but we're, right at the spot where Megan might not be able to approve the well. But it's how she reads the. And for a shared water system, what you're proposing here, it's 15 gallons per minute over a 1-hour period, or 10 gallons per minute over a 2-hour period. So she won't be able to get that. And the well's pretty deep at 640 feet. And the static water level's at 23 or 230 feet. So it's just a concern. Is it good drinking? You had it tested? Please get it tested. For your own sake. I see they're building a lot of houses down below Confederate Gulch. And during the early mining period, and they used a lot of mercury to stick the gold together, ammo. And they would collect it into sluice boxes with mercury. And I've always wondered, now the mercury doesn't disappear from the environment. Now they're building all these houses down there in their trucks. But maybe it's gone. But they use barrels and barrels and barrels.
Mr. Chair, can I address some of Charles's concerns and suggest appropriate mitigation moving forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything further?
You know, I think I've done enough damage today, and I apologize.
Okay.
I think that reading through everything in the staff report and this, I choose the rest.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we'll go to your responses, please.
Yeah, certainly. Mr. Chair, I just have some mitigation and some suggested paths moving forward. So, first of all, Charles, thank you so much for going through that. I think that's super helpful for myself, for the public, for this board. So, don't ever apologize for taking time on these applications, because these are important. So, I'm going to work backwards from our questions, or from your questions. So, can I say that your concern with item number 7 on page 40, can I say that that has been satisfied, or would you like additional information on that? Because I don't have any idea what could be that additional information. I feel for my own self, the water right being included in the letter from Megan should satisfy that, but I want to be sure that you are satisfied with that mitigation.
I'm okay with it. It'd be nice if there was a test pit dug on the property,
Okay. So
But-
moving forward,
but I'm okay with it.
okay. Just so I can address that in the future. Okay. But we're good here. Okay. Again, moving backwards, you had a question regarding the hazard mitigation and the Lombard thrust. And I do note we pointed this out, but I just want to make sure that none of your concerns are being ignored. I want to make sure that they're all being addressed publicly and on the record here. Condition of approval, as Shay had pointed out, there's a condition of approval regarding earthquake fault zone on page 12. Is it on 12? Yes, item number 8 E, notice to say by given that all structures within the subdivision should be constructed to specifications which meet or exceed equivalent provisions in the applicable state building code for this seismic zone, which is zone 3. So that's one path of mitigation towards the concern of the earthquake fault zone. Clearly, we don't have any way to condemn said property, which I realize that's a very, very extreme measure, but, regarding there's earthquake fault zone. So for my own self, I feel that that is appropriate mitigation to make sure that it's listed in this covenant, this irrevocable covenant. Mind you, this is not something that can be amended without the consent of the Board of County Commissioners. And so the reason for that covenant being placed in there is so that that information is passed down to any future owners, hundreds of years from now. Do you feel that's appropriate mitigation? Or would you like to see something further that may be allowable in MCA or regulation?
It's satisfactory to me. Once again, I was reading through the application, and it basically said there was no hazards. And that's really not the case.
Certainly.
There's an earthquake hazard there. And so it's my responsibility to the board and to the chairman, vice chairman, to say, wait a minute.
Okay. And yes, I understand that. Yeah, that's certainly a hazard that has been addressed by staff, which will subsequently be forwarded potentially to the commissioners as a hazard identified by this board. So even though, yes, it wasn't identified in the application, it was identified and will be identified for perpetuity following this land, essentially. Okay, again, if we're satisfied there. Moving on to your question of boundary line adjustment, Book 1, page 917. I did not find that document in the application. I think that can be mitigated by a follow-up meeting and not be perceived as new information, because all it is doing is becoming a supplement to the plating certificate, which I don't recall which item number that was now.
It's item 10.
Thank you, Shay. Item number 10, the plating certificate that identified a boundary line adjustment being Book 1, page 917. I did look through the binder and didn't identify that item in here, but I think it can be provided quite simply by the developer and presented at the next meeting. Simply showing what that Book 1, page 917 is, because if it's not included in here, but it is not the most recent survey, so it should not be perceived as new information. I want to be very clear on that. This is not new information. This is simply supplemental information to identify a request on the or a request for clarification on the plating certificate. So mitigation for that, if Tess is agreeable to get a copy of recorded document Book 1, page 917, to provide that to the planning board prior to the next meeting. Prior to or at, obviously prior to is preferential because then it allows you time to review instead of reviewing in a public setting. And so I'll go through all of these and then I'll give Tessa time to respond, so we're not going back and forth, if that's okay. All right, the next one, utilities. I believe this was simply an oversight from sufficiency to when binders were made for you, because I do have documentation in here, and in lieu of me passing my book around and you being forced to make a quick decision, I stated my proposed mitigation for this would be simply to pause at the close of today's meeting and restart the clock at whatever, and I'll do better at mathing and figure out what day we're actually on today, and we'll pick back up on this day of the clock moving forward once you have had an opportunity to look at those utilities. So mitigation would be that Tess would provide the utility map that's included in my binder so that I can get it on to each of you planning board members. And then the...
Let me ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Under this tab 4, now that I see what the utilities are, it looks like it's following that black line in there. Is that what you're calling utilities, or do you have to have like a clearly marked document? I don't know all the words, I'm sorry.
May I respond?
Yes, please.
First of all, you're not expected to know all the words.
Thank
Don't
you.
apologize. Thank you.
I'm gonna slaughter a
Nope,
bunch, just so you know.
We're all here learning together. So no, actually, under tab 6 in my binder, I have utility map showing the utilities within the boundaries of the property. So this is
Okay.
under tab 6, and then I have a utility map showing the utilities outside of the boundaries of the property. It looks like maybe a section, so maybe a mile surrounding the property. So I have this map, which I don't
Okay.
believe you have. I
There's a little
looked
more.
in Dallas's book. And I think it was just an oversight, the transfer from sufficiency to the books being presented to the planning board. So I think those were just missed because these were maps that Tessa had provided to me. And so I know they would be easy for her to get copies, and I can get them in your hands for you to review them. So that
this
seems,
is a marking of some of the utilities, but not covering all the utilities that we need to know about.
that is correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So I feel like that would be an appropriate mitigation, at least a path moving forward. Not to say that you must be satisfied with those, but at least mitigation to move forward for today's meeting. And then the final concern that I have on here that Charles would like to see more topo as it relates to the houses. And I don't recall what tab that was under. I didn't write down the tab number.
One under
7. Because the topo map is of the building area, and so it shows the home site, and as you can see, the water spigots. And this is typical, and I know it's addressed in the regulations, and I apologize, I don't have that section, but when it's a large swath of area, there's really not a lot of need, I should say, to shoot topo on the entire property, especially because the reason that we're even asking the question of topography is for public health and safety. If someone wants to drive, walk, ride a horse, whatever, on the rest of the property, obviously they're going to be made aware of the topography. The reason for the request for the topography is for the home sites, to ensure that we're not putting them in an area of excessive slope. So I guess if you would like to see more, we have to make sure that we can request more according to the subdivision regulations. So that one I don't have appropriate mitigation just at this juncture. But I guess my question was more, what is it